My wife ignored me all day. At 10 p.m., she came home smirking and said I slept with my boss. I said nothing. By morning, she saw the legal papers. She walked through the front door at 10 o'clock at night, smelling like another man's cologne, sat down across from me at the kitchen table, and smiled. It was not the kind of smile that says, "I'm sorry I am late." It was not the kind of smile that says, "I know we need to talk." It was the kind of smile that says she had already won something. Then she told me, just like that, casual and flat, as if she were telling me about traffic on I-285.
You know what happened today, Boyd? I had a one-night stand with my boss. And honestly, I would do it again. I looked at her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I picked up my fork, cut into the last piece of the pork chop I had been eating alone at that table for 2 hours, and chewed it slowly. I did not slam the table. I did not yell. I did not say a single word. She expected fire. She got silence. And that silence was the most expensive thing I ever gave Lena Mercer in 14 years of marriage. Because by the time the sun came up the next morning, she finally understood what that quiet really meant. And she was not smiling anymore. My name is Boyd Mercer. I am 44 years old and I run 3 hardware stores in the greater Atlanta metro area. One is in Smyrna, one is in Kennesaw, and one is in Marietta. I opened the Marietta store 11 years ago, back when everybody told me a small independent place would never survive next to the big box chains on Barrett Parkway. People told me I was out of my mind. I told them I knew my customers better than any corporate floor manager ever would. Turns out, I was right. 3 stores, 18 full-time employees, and a reputation in Cobb County that took 20 years of early morning sore backs and calloused hands to build. I grew up in Cartersville, about 45 minutes north of Atlanta. My father worked at a plant nursery his whole life, and my mother cleaned houses. We were not poor, but we understood something very clearly. Everything you had was something you earned, and everything you earned could disappear if you got careless. That lesson settled in my chest like an anchor. It still sits there. I have a son named Tate. He is 22 from my first marriage, which ended before it ever really had a chance to become anything solid. His mother and I were too young and too stubborn, and we both knew it within 2 years. The split was honest at least. No games, no poison, no trying to turn a child into a weapon. We co-parented Tate without drama, and he turned into the kind of young man who makes you proud without ever needing to be told to. He is finishing a business degree at Kennesaw State now, and he works part-time at my Marietta store on weekends. He is a good kid, solid, steady in a way I admire more every year. And then there was Lena. I met Lena 11 years ago at a Chamber of Commerce event in Marietta. She was working in commercial real estate at the time. She was sharp as a tack. Funny in that dry way where you do not always realize she has made a joke until 3 seconds after she delivers it. She was 33 then, beautiful in a way that made a room shift when she walked in. We dated for 2 years. We got married at a vineyard out in Dahlonega up in the North Georgia mountains, and I truly thought I had finally gotten it right the second time around. For a while, maybe I had. But people change. Or maybe they do not change at all. Maybe they just finally stop pretending to be who they were in the beginning. I have never been able to figure out which one it was with Lena. All I know is that the woman who walked through my front door at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night in March was not the woman I married. And if I am being honest with myself, she had not been that woman for a long time before I finally admitted it. The signs had been there for months. I just did not want to read them. Lena had taken a new position at Callaway Group, a commercial development firm with offices in Buckhead. Her boss was a man named Garrett Callaway. Yes, the owner's son, which tells you almost everything you need to know about how he got the title. He was 38, twice divorced, drove a black G-Wagon with a personalized plate, and carried the kind of confidence that does not come from earning anything. It comes from never having to. At first, Lena talked about him constantly. Garrett this, Garrett says that. Garrett thinks the Midtown project is going to close at $12 million. Garrett believes the city is leaning one way. Garrett has a contact in zoning. I did not think much of it in the beginning. Lena was ambitious, and she had always talked about work the way other people talk about sports. Deals, numbers, properties, clients, office politics. That was normal for her. Then suddenly the talking about Garrett stopped. Just like that. Gone. And if you have ever been in a long marriage, you know that when someone stops mentioning a name they used to say every day, that is not nothing. That is something. Her phone habits changed around the same time. She used to leave it on the charger in the kitchen every night, face up, like it was just another household object. Then it started going to bed with her. Then it started coming into the bathroom with her. Then it developed a new passcode, one Saturday afternoon while I was out back doing yard work. She said it herself, did not mention it, and apparently did not think I would notice. But I noticed. She started coming home later too. At first it was 7 o'clock, and I understood that. Commercial real estate does not keep banker's hours. Then it was 8:30, then 9. The excuses were always reasonable if you took them one at a time. Client dinners, late showings, site walks that ran long, a meeting that got pushed, drinks after a closing, the kind of thing that sounds fine once and sounds like a pattern by the 15th time. I would like to tell you I confronted her right away. I would like to tell you I sat her down early and demanded the truth that I was some decisive man who always faced things head on. But the honest answer is that I did not. Part of me was not ready to know. When you have built a life with someone, when you share a mortgage and mutual friends and holiday traditions, in the small, ordinary architecture of a long marriage, there is a part of your brain that protects you from the kind of truth that would require you to burn it all down. It is not always weakness. Sometimes it is survival instinct, but survival instinct can cost you. What snapped me out of it was not a gut feeling. It was a Tuesday in January when I came home early from the Kennesaw store. The HVAC had gone out and we closed at 3 o'clock. I walked into the house and found a receipt sitting on the kitchen counter from a restaurant on the Atlanta Beltline. 2 glasses of wine, an appetizer, an entree, another entree, 2 desserts. The date was a Thursday, 2 weeks earlier, a night Lena had told me she was at a networking dinner with 6 people from her office. You do not order 1 dessert apiece at a table of 6. You order a plate for the table, maybe. But 2 desserts means 2 people. Intimate, deliberate. Easy to understand once you stop trying not to understand it. I took a photo of the receipt with my phone and said nothing. The next morning, I called my accountant Sherman Dade. Sherman had handled my books for 9 years. He was a quiet, methodical man who worked out of an office on South Cobb Drive, and I trusted him completely. I did not call him about business that day. Sherman, I said, I need to understand the full picture of our household finances. Joint accounts, anything you have processed for Lena personally, everything. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Is that a tax question, Boyd? No, I said. There was another pause. You want me to pull everything? Everything. And Sherman, I need you to be discreet. He said he understood. Sherman pulled 3 months of joint account statements and cross-referenced them against the tax documents he had on file. What he found was not dramatic enough for a movie, but it was clear enough for real life. Lena had been moving money. Small amounts, $200 here, $350 there. Transfers from our joint savings into an individual account I was not a signer on. She had opened it 8 months earlier. Over those 8 months, she had moved just under $4,000 into it. In the grand scheme of things, it was not a lot of money. But nobody moves money in secret for innocent reasons. I took that information to my attorney, Colette Rashad. Colette ran a practice in Marietta focused on family law and high-asset divorces. She was direct, fast-thinking, and did not waste words. So she is building a cushion, Colette said, leaning back in her chair and looking over the statements I had brought her. That is how I read it, I said. How long do you think this has been going on? The affair, not the money. At least 6 months, maybe longer. Colette nodded slowly. Georgia is a no-fault divorce state, but behavior matters when it comes to asset division and potential alimony disputes. If she has been conducting an affair and moving marital funds, that is relevant. I want you to do a few things before you do anything else. She told me to document everything I could without confronting Lena. Photograph receipts, screenshot any relevant financial activity I had access to. Write down dates and observations with timestamps. Keep it factual, keep it cold. Do not make speeches. Do not start fights. Do not tip my hand just because my pride wanted a moment. Then she told me to do one more thing I had not expected. Start separating your business assets in ways that are legally defensible, she said. Not hiding anything. Everything through proper channels. But make sure the picture is accurate before anyone starts making claims about what is marital property and what is not. I had already put all 3 stores in an LLC years earlier on the advice of my original business attorney. Colette said that was in my favor. We spent the next hour going through the structure carefully. By the time I left her office, I had a plan. Not a revenge plan, not a dramatic plan, just a quiet, methodical Boyd Mercer plan. The kind that starts with information and ends with solid ground. And I had not said a single word to Lena. February passed slowly. I watched and I documented and I kept going to work. I came home, ate dinner, answered ordinary questions, handled household things, and slept in the same bed with a woman who was already gone. Every night I lay there in the dark next to her and grieved something I had not technically lost yet, and something I would not admit I had already lost. Tate called me during that time. He could hear something in my voice even over the phone. He always could, even when he was a kid. He would ask how things were going, and I would say, fine. Then there would be a pause where he was deciding whether to push, and most of the time, he let it go. One Sunday in late February, he came to the Marietta store to work his shift. Afterward, we went to dinner at a barbecue place on Whitlock Avenue, a place we had been going to together since he was 12. He ordered the pulled pork, like always. I ordered the brisket. We talked about the store, his coursework, his plans after graduation, and all the normal things fathers and sons talk about when one of them is trying very hard not to let the other one see the crack forming in his life. Then Tate set down his fork and looked at me in that straight, patient way he has. Dad, what is going on with you and Lena? I looked at my plate for a second. Then I looked at my son. He was 22, but sitting across from me in that booth, he seemed older than that, steadier than I felt. I am working through some things, I said. Is the marriage in trouble? I swallowed. It was the first time I said the truth out loud. Yeah, I said. Yeah, Tate, I think it might be. He nodded once slowly, the way he does when he is taking in information he does not like but is not going to argue with. What do you need from me? That question got to me more than any speech could have. Of all the things he could have said, he asked me what I needed. 22 years old, and he was asking his father that. Right now, just let me handle it, I said. Do not say anything to anybody. And know that, whatever happens, the stores are solid. My life is solid, and I am going to be fine. I know you will be, he said. Then he picked up his fork, and we finished dinner. March came, and with it came the night everything changed. It was a Tuesday. I had spent the morning at the Smyrna store and the afternoon doing paperwork in my home office. Around 7, I made dinner. Pork chops, roasted potatoes, green beans. The kind of simple meal I had always been able to put together without thinking about it. I sat one place at the table. Lena had texted me at noon saying she would be late because of some deal she was working on. I texted back, okay. Then she stopped responding. At 5 o'clock when I started cooking, I texted dinner around 7. You want me to save you a plate? Nothing. At 7:15, I texted, food is ready. Nothing. So I ate alone. I cleaned the kitchen. Then I sat back down at the table with a glass of water and waited. Not because I expected anything good. Not because I thought she would walk in and suddenly tell me the truth with remorse on her face. I waited because I needed to see what she walked in as. At 10 o'clock, I heard her key in the lock. She looked polished, not that tired, rumpled look of someone who had spent hours in long meetings. Her hair was down, and it had that careful quality that takes deliberate effort. Her lipstick was fresh. You do not reapply lipstick at 10 o'clock at night after a work dinner without a reason. And she smelled like a cologne I did not own. She set her bag on the counter, looked at me sitting at the kitchen table under the overhead light, and smiled. The wrong smile, the one I told you about at the beginning. You were waiting up, she said. It was not a question. It was not quite an apology either. Just finishing my water, I said. She sat down across from me and leaned back in the chair. I watched her decide something in real time. I could see it pass across her face like a weather front moving through. Then she said it.
You know what happened today, Boyd? She said Garrett's name. She told me exactly what she had done and where. She told me it was not the first time. She told me she did not regret it. She told me she would do it again. I think she wanted me to overturn the table. I think she wanted me to scream. I think she needed me to make a scene so she could cast herself as the victim of my reaction, instead of the architect of her own choices. That is the way some people work. They do the damage, then they need you to lose control so they can point at the explosion and say, "See, this is why." I did not give her that. I looked at her for 3 seconds. Then I picked up my fork and ate the last piece of pork chop on my plate. I did not say a word. She waited. She watched me. The smirk slowly turned into something less certain. Boyd, I finished chewing. I put down my fork. I picked up my glass and drank the last of my water. Then I stood up, carried my plate to the sink, rinsed it, and placed it in the dishwasher. Boyd, say something. I turned off the kitchen light and walked down the hall to the guest room where I had been sleeping for 3 weeks without telling her I had made that decision. Then I closed the door. That night was the quietest I had slept in months. The next morning, I was up at 5:30. I showered, got dressed, and made coffee. By the time Lena came downstairs at 7, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, a legal pad beside it, and a stack of documents next to my coffee mug. She stopped in the doorway and looked at the table. She looked at the open laptop, the legal pad covered in notes, the documents, and my coffee. Something in her face shifted. She was reading the room. She was starting to understand. "What is all that?" she asked. "Business," I said. She poured herself coffee and stood at the counter. The bold confidence from 10 o'clock the night before was gone. Completely gone. In its place was something watchful and a little afraid. "Are you going to talk to me?" she asked. "I am going to talk to my attorney today," I said. "I already have an appointment." The coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. "Your attorney, Colette Rashad," I said. "You have met her?" "Christmas party, 2 years ago." Lena set the cup down on the counter. "Boyd." "I am not angry, Lena," I said, and I meant it. The anger had already happened in private. It had happened over weeks in the car on the way home from work, in the dark at 2 in the morning, and in every quiet moment I had to myself while I worked through what I knew. I was past angry. I had moved beyond the part where anger was useful. I am past angry, I told her. I am at the part where things get organized. Organized? She repeated, as if the word did not quite make sense. "I have been talking to Colette since January," I said, after I found the receipt from the Beltline restaurant. "2 desserts, Lena. You told me it was a table of 6. She went very still. "Sherman pulled the joint account records," I continued. "The individual account you opened in June, he found it. Nearly $4,000 moved over 8 months. I watched her face and kept my voice level. "I am not bringing this up to punish you. I am bringing it up so we are both clear. I have known for a while. I have been preparing. Now we are going to move forward in an organized and legal fashion." She sat down across from me at the table. For the first time since I had known her, Lena looked genuinely caught. "How long?" she asked quietly. "How long have I known, or how long have I been preparing?" She did not answer. "Long enough," I said. "Colette is filing paperwork today. I have already moved my business assets into a structure that reflects their premarital origin. The stores have been in an LLC for 6 years. That was always going to be protected, but we have made sure the documentation is airtight. The house we will deal with properly." Lena put both hands flat on the table. "I do not, Boyd. I do not want to fight you on this." "Good," I said, "because I do not want to fight either. I want a clean, honest settlement. I am not trying to leave you with nothing. I am not that kind of man. But I am not going to pretend that what happened is something we can repair. Not after last night." She looked down at the table. Her jaw was tight. "I do not know why I said it that way," she said finally. "Last night, the way I told you. I do not know why I did it like that." I thought about that for a second. I thought I did know why. She had wanted a reaction she could use. She had wanted chaos.
She had spent months making a secret decision, and she needed me to make one too loudly and badly so she would not have to sit with the full weight of hers. It does not change the outcome, I said. Then I went back to my laptop. Colette filed that afternoon. By the end of the week, Lena had retained her own attorney, a man out of Sandy Springs whose name I recognized from billboards on I-75. I was not surprised. Lena was nothing if not efficient. When she finally decided to move, the next 3 months were the kind of months you survive rather than live. I went to work. I ran the stores. I talked to Colette twice a week. I had dinner with Tate on Sundays, and I told him as much as he needed to know without making it ugly. He handled it with more maturity than most grown men would have. The settlement negotiations were uncomfortable, but they were not vicious. Lena's attorney pushed on the house and on the stores. Colette held firm on the LLC structure. The businesses were premarital assets and had been formally documented that way since before the marriage. The house was the marital home, so we handled it the way you handle a house. We agreed to sell it, split the equity, and each move forward. What Lena's attorney had not anticipated was the documentation on the individual bank account. Moving marital funds into a private account, even in small amounts, is not a neutral act in a divorce proceeding. It gave Colette leverage. Not to destroy Lena, not to humiliate her, just to level the table. The final settlement was fair. Not generous to her, not punitive from me, just fair. And that was what I had wanted from the beginning. I moved out of the Vinings house in June and rented a 3-bedroom place in East Cobb, on a quiet street off Johnson Ferry Road, with a big backyard and a covered porch that faces west. I have had more peace on that porch in 4 months than I had in the last 4 years of my marriage. The stores are doing well. The Marietta location just had its best quarter since I opened it. We are expanding the tool and equipment rental section, which was Sherman's idea and something I should have done 3 years ago. Tate works Saturdays, and we still have dinner most Sundays. Sometimes we cook at my place now instead of going out. He's been teaching himself to grill, and he's better at it than he will admit. I still think about the night Lena sat across from me at that kitchen table and told me what she had done. I think about it the way you think about the exact moment you finally understood something that had been true for a while. Not with bitterness. More like the feeling you get when a storm finally breaks. There is relief in knowing what you are dealing with, even when what you are dealing with is bad. She expected fire. She got silence. And that silence said everything she needed to hear, even if she did not understand it. Until the next morning when she came downstairs and saw the legal pad on the table. Some people will tell you moments like that are about winning and losing. I do not believe that anymore. That is the wrong frame. It is not about beating anyone. It is about knowing who you are when someone tries to take that from you. It is about being the kind of man who does not have to yell to be heard. My father used to say, the quietest man in the room usually knows something the rest of them do not. He was talking about negotiations, about dealing with suppliers and contractors, about the way you carry yourself when money is on the line. But I think he was talking about more than that, even if he did not know it. I think about Tate at that barbecue restaurant, setting down his fork and asking me, "What do you need from me?" 22 years old, already more grounded than I was at 40. If I did one thing right in this life, it was raising a young man who asks that question instead of telling you what you should feel. My life is smaller than it was 6 months ago. 1 house instead of 2. Quieter evenings. No more trying to read a room where someone is always managing a secret. That smallness, that simplicity, I did not know how much I wanted it until I had it. Some losses are the best thing that ever happened to you. It just takes a while to see them that way. I am Boyd Mercer. I own 3 hardware stores in Cobb County, Georgia. I once sat at a kitchen table and finished a pork chop while my wife told me she had slept with her boss and would do it again. The next morning, I had a legal pad, a plan, and 14 years of patience that finally had somewhere to go. The stores are still there. My son is still there. My name is still good in this county. She took the smirk. I kept everything else. Looking back, what stays with me most is not her confession. It is the discipline it took not to become the man she was trying to provoke. Lena did not just come home with another man's scent on her clothes. She came home looking for a fight. She wanted fire, she wanted screaming, she wanted chaos to justify her own betrayal. But silence can be the strongest boundary a person owns. By finishing my dinner and saying nothing, I told her I was no longer available for the role she wanted me to play. While she was playing a one-night stand game, I had already been forced into a long-term legal game. I did not lose my temper because I had already prepared my exit. I did not only protect my hardware stores, I protected my dignity. What I understand now is simple. You do not have to yell to be heard. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is go quiet, get organized, and let the truth do the talking for you. Lena thought she had won a night. I won my future. And that is the difference between someone who only knows how to be ambitious and someone who knows how to stand solid.